You are watching the world 24/7 on the NDTV network. I am Parmeshwar Bawa. We've got an action-packed bulletin lined up for you. Let's begin with the top headlines you need to know. At least 4 people, including a New York City police officer, shot dead inside a New York City skyscraper. The office building that was attacked houses major financial firms as well as the NFL. The Indian Army, along with Jammu and Kashmir Police and CRPF, launched an anti-terror operation under the codename Operation Mahadev and successfully eliminated 3 terrorists, including the mastermind behind the Pahalgam attack. US President Donald Trump says his administration plans to introduce a global baseline tariff of 15 to 20% for countries that do not have individual trade agreements with the United States. Meanwhile, the US President says there's real starvation in Gaza, breaking with Israeli Prime Minister Mr. Netanyahu's account of conditions in the enclave that have sparked growing international pushback. Trump says the children in Gaza look very hungry and suggested that Israel may have to take a different approach to the territory. A truce agreement between Thailand and Cambodia came into effect in the early hours of Tuesday, testing whether it will halt 5 days of open combat that have engulfed their jungle-clad frontier. And 19-year-old Divya Deshmukh beat 38-year-old Koneru Hampi in an all-Indian final to become the first Indian champion of the FIDE Women's Chess World Cup. A big focus at the moment, a police officer was fatally shot in a shocking incident unfolding in New York at the moment. A gunman opened fire near a corporate skyscraper on Park Avenue, reportedly killing at least 4, including an NYPD officer. New York City's police commissioner says the scene has been contained and the lone shooter has now been neutralized, but the bomb squad and FBI are currently on the scene. And this building, which was under attack, is actually home to the NFL and Blackstone offices, but currently it remains locked down. Local police now say the scene has been contained while the lone shooter has been neutralized, but we have some crucial reactions lined up for you. A reaction from the eyewitness as well as New York City's mayor. Listen in.
I saw personally a guy on the floor. He was laid out. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he got shot. But there was a guy laying on the floor. They tried to give him CPR. He didn't get up. They put him in the ambulance.
There's some lady, she couldn't stop talking. She said, "Oh, is somebody gunned this and that?" So we asked questions. What was going on? They said somebody
was on the floor.
Was on the floor. He got messed up. Supposedly he got cut on the neck. They said somebody's inside with a gun.
Unfortunately, we had a shooting here where with multiple injuries. The perpetrator, the known perpetrator, is neutralized at this time. Those who are in the building, we're asking you to remain inside as so officers are doing a floor-by-floor search. We believe, again, the perpetrator is neutralized at this time. We're going over to the hospital to speak with the family and loved ones involved in this incident. We did have a shooter with multiple injuries at this time. The perpetrator is neutralized.
Meanwhile, a new reality is settling in for the global economy. US President Donald Trump's tariffs are here to stay. In fact, on Monday morning, Trump said the baseline tariff rate for the world will be in the range of 15 to 20%, probably one of those 2 numbers. That statement actually came some 12 hours after Trump announced an agreement with the European Union that would see a 15% tax paid on products brought into the United States from the bloc. The EU, as we reported, also agreed to spend $750 billion on energy purchases from the United States, while also investing an additional $600 billion in the US. Meanwhile, India is exercising caution in its trade negotiations with the United States. This careful approach stems from complications in America's recent agreement with Japan, alongside ongoing difficulties in finalizing deals announced by President Donald Trump with Indonesia and Vietnam. We've also been reporting that US negotiators would actually visit India in the latter half of August. But let's just go across to Rishabh Bhatnagar to figure out what's happening currently. Right, I'm told he's going to be joining us in just a few moments. But India's trade performance, meanwhile, is it likely to suffer in the coming quarters due to this ongoing uncertainty over Trump's tariff policies? Well, that remains to be seen. But US's trade envoy says we need more negotiations before the deal. India's trade policy is currently strongly protectionist, is what some of them argue. But India is exercising caution in its trade negotiations with the US. And this careful approach, as I mentioned, it stems from complications in America's recent agreement with Japan, alongside the difficulties that are unfolding in finalizing deals with Indonesia and Vietnam. Meanwhile, top US and Chinese economic officials met in Stockholm for more than 5 hours of talks aimed at resolving long-standing economic disputes at the center of a trade war between the world's top two economies, seeking to extend a truce by 3 months. US Treasury Secretary, the chief actually, Scott Bessent, was part of a US negotiating team that arrived in Stockholm. The Swedish Prime Minister's office is where this meeting was actually initiated. China's Vice Premier was also seen at the venue as far as video footage is concerned. Moving on, as Defence Minister Rajnath Singh began the Operation Sindoor debate in Parliament, security forces scored a massive win by gunning down 3 Pakistani terrorists in an encounter near Srinagar. In fact, 2 of them involved in the Pahalgam attack, in which 26 civilians, innocent civilians, were murdered in cold blood. Suleiman Shah, a Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorist, was identified as the mastermind of the 22nd April terror attack that shook the nation. Security sources have confirmed that he was actually among the terrorists killed in the encounter. But the security action, codenamed Operation Mahadev, took place after intelligence inputs and technical surveillance suggested that there was terrorist movement in the area. The operation was jointly carried out by the Indian Army as well as the Jammu and Kashmir police personnel. And during the encounter, the security forces also recovered arms and ammunition from the site where the terrorists were found. You must note that sources say that Operation Mahadev is part of a broader effort to eliminate sleeper cells and terrorists which have infiltrated into the Kashmir Valley. By the way, US President Donald Trump has reiterated his claims of stopping a conflict between India and Pakistan while citing the recent ceasefire deal between Thailand and Cambodia. The remark came even as External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar in Parliament said there was no US involvement in the ceasefire between our two countries. Trump, though, said there would be 6 wars going on globally if he wasn't around, adding he also helped end the conflict between India and Pakistan. But like I mentioned earlier in the day, though, Dr. Jaishankar had categorically denied Trump's claim of intervening in the India-Pakistan conflict and using trade offers to make the two countries reach a ceasefire understanding.
My administration helped broker a full and immediate ceasefire, I think a permanent one, between India and Pakistan, ending a dangerous conflict of 2 nations with lots of nuclear weapons. And we helped also with trade. I said, come on, we're going to do a lot of trade with you guys. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. If you stop it, we're doing trade. If you don't stop it, we're not going to do any trade. People have never really used trade the way I used it. That I can tell you. And all of a sudden they said, I think we're going to stop.
At no stage in any conversation with the United States was there any linkage with trade and what was going on. Secondly, there was, please listen. Secondly, there was no call between the Prime Minister and President Trump from the 22nd of April, when President Trump called up to convey his sympathy, and the 17th of June, when he called up Prime Minister in Canada to explain why he could not meet.
In other news, a truce agreement between Thailand and Cambodia came into effect in the early hours of Tuesday, testing whether it will halt the worst fighting between the neighboring countries in more than a decade. Both sides have agreed on an unconditional ceasefire, and it would start at midnight on Monday to end battling over a smattering of ancient temples in disputed zones along the 800-kilometer border. But over the last 5 days, jets, rockets, and artillery have killed at least 38 people and displaced nearly 3 lakh more, prompting intervention over the weekend from Donald Trump, who has taken credit for the ceasefire deal. The US president had actually threatened both countries with high tariffs and warned that trade negotiations would be paused until the fighting stopped. Here are the finer details.
After almost 5 days of deadly clashes along the Thailand-Cambodia border, a fragile calm settles over Southeast Asia as the neighbors agreed to a ceasefire on Monday. At least 34 people were killed in the conflict centered around the cluster of temples on the border. Almost 3 lakh civilians were evacuated. International concern was mounting. The world watched as 2 ASEAN neighbors stood at the brink of war. Then came the breakthrough. Under mounting diplomatic pressure and a proposal led by Malaysia's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, both sides agreed to lay down arms.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very good meeting and very good results that hope to stop immediately the fighting.
I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Prime Minister Anwar, the government of China, and President Trump for your good view and concern.
But as the smoke clears, big questions linger. Core issues such as disputed territory, border militarization, and decades of mistrust remain unresolved. And while guns are silent for now, the road to lasting peace is anything but certain. The big question is, will diplomacy hold? Or is this just the eye of a bigger storm? Southeast Asia holds its breath, and the world watches with it. With Vishal Vivek, Bureau Report for NDTV.
For a quick update on whether the ceasefire is holding, Amit Khanna joins us live from Bangkok at the moment. Amit, thanks so much for your time. The Thailand and Cambodia ceasefire has come into effect, but opposing military chiefs are also expected to meet today?
The ceasefire was announced yesterday, but there has been a allegation of ceasefire violation from the Thai side, and there has been a fierce gun battle till 5 a.m. this morning.
Right. Meanwhile, what are you picking up from experts who've been tracking the border dispute? Is this ceasefire likely to hold?
No, absolutely. So there have been confirmed reports that now the firing from the both sides have stopped.
Okay, right. That is a positive update coming in as far as this border dispute is concerned, because over the last 5 days, 38 people have lost their lives. Some argue that the truce actually reflects the influence of external powers, meanwhile, in Southeast Asia. Amit, thanks so much for joining us. We'll, of course, revert to you for regular updates. US President Donald Trump, meanwhile, says there is real starvation in Gaza, breaking with Israeli Prime Minister Mr. Netanyahu's account of conditions in the enclave that have sparked growing international pushback. Trump says the children in Gaza look very hungry. In fact, if we can just pull out the latest visuals, Trump has also suggested that Israel may have to take a different approach to the territory. Condemnation also grew within Israel, where more prominent figures are speaking out against the military's actions. 2 leading Israeli human rights groups accuse the country of committing genocide. For Trump, the moment, though, presents a test of his foreign policy and will also determine whether Washington still intends to take a leading role among nations in confronting this humanitarian crisis and the humanitarian effects of war, experts are arguing. Just listen in to Trump's latest remarks.
Well, I want them to make sure they get the food. I want to make sure they get the food, every ounce of food. I think you want the same thing.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump has also said he would shorten the deadline for Russia to reach a ceasefire deal with Ukraine. Trump last month had given Moscow 50 days until the 3rd of September to end the war, but he now plans to reduce that timeline to 10 to 12 days. And Trump has threatened sanctions on Russia and secondary tariffs on its trading partners if no deal is reached, and penalties that could further imperil the Russian economy and derail Washington's trade negotiations with India and China. Trump's remarks, which were met with hope in Ukraine, reflect his growing frustration with Vladimir Putin. In fact, some experts say that they have conversations and then people die the following night with a missile going into a town. So let's wait and watch what happens to this 10 or 12-day timeline.
Any questions?
Mr. President, on Gaza, earlier you said that you were going to change the deadline from 50 days.
Yeah, I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. There's no reason in waiting. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made.
News and updates continue in a moment right here on NDTV. See you in a second. Well, dozens of intense wildfires have swept across parts of Greece and Turkey as sweltering conditions continue to push temperatures well into the triple digits. In Turkey, a rapidly spreading fire forced the evacuation of 3,500 people. US President Donald Trump faced a fresh blast of questions over his involvement with the Epstein files during a joint press conference with UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer at the Trump Golf Resort in Scotland. The 79-year-old revealed that he turned it down, describing it as a very good moment. In fact, Trump asserted that he had never been to Jeffrey Epstein's island. He also accused former US President Bill Clinton of having frequently visited, an assertion that Mr. Clinton has long denied. But during the press conference, Trump shared that he never had the privilege of going to his island. And to quote him, he said, "I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to that island." The US military will start using artificial intelligence agents in its war games. The experimental project, Thunder Forge, uses AI agents to critique military plans and also run war simulations. It was tested during a tabletop exercise in June and will be rolled out to the Pacific and European commands this year. Meanwhile, New York's Indian origin mayoral frontrunner Zohran Mamdani reportedly celebrated his recent marriage to Rama Dwaji with a 3-day lavish bash at his family's sprawling compound in Uganda. The celebrations held at their family estate were a heavily fortified affair complete with armed military-style guards and masks, a phone jamming system and multiple security gates, as reports have highlighted. But Zohran Mamdani is now being slammed for this lavish wedding with masked guards and jammers. Many are mocking him as the man of the people, while others are criticizing Mamdani's privilege in the East African country, and some also call him a peak champagne socialist. In other news, Samsung has agreed a $16.5 billion deal to manufacture artificial intelligence chips for Tesla in a move hailed by Elon Musk. The South Korean tech company announced the contract with an unnamed client in a regulatory filing, with Tesla's chief executive giving further details on his social media platform X. In fact, Musk wrote that Samsung would produce Tesla's next-gen AI chips at a new plant in Texas. Moving on, East Asia is deepening efforts to incentivize having children. China has just launched its first nationwide childcare subsidy program, offering families about $500 annually for each child under 3 as part of a broader move to address declining marriages and also fertility rates. The issue, though, extends beyond the region, with global fertility at its lowest rate in recorded history and the world's population expected to start declining in 2080. Some experts argue that such depopulation will lead to fewer wars as governments focus on shrinking resources. And finally, 19-year-old Divya Deshmukh beat 38-year-old Koneru Humpy in an all-Indian final to become the first Indian champion of the FIDE Women's Chess World Cup. Divya beat Humpy using black pieces in the second rapid tiebreaker game in Georgia to clinch the crown. And just hours after her World Cup win in Georgia, Divya Deshmukh spoke exclusively with NDTV's Rika Roy. Listen in to what she told my colleague Rika.
And here's the first exclusive interview of Divya Deshmukh after she won the Chess World Cup. Divya, thank you very much for joining us on the phone line from Batumi. Give us your first reaction, please.
I am very happy and I'm very relieved that I got my Grandmaster title.
There are only 4 women in India who are Grandmasters. Do you have an idol?
I think there are a lot of things to look up to from a lot of people. I don't have anyone specific in my mind right now.
Divya, how was it beating Koneru Humpy? She's a huge role model, a woman equivalent to Vishwanathan Anand.
I think she's an incredible player and super strong, and I have huge respect for her. And this wasn't our first matchup, so it wasn't something new, but definitely clinching the World Cup has been great.
In having won this, you have also qualified for the candidates tournament. Tell us what's going to be your strategy. Vishwanathan Anand says that you have broken the Chinese wall.
I don't think I've had enough time to even think about it. I was just very invested in the tournament, so I think I need some more time.
Right, I do understand you will need some time to soak in this moment. But before I let you go, one fun thing we saw about you is the nail art. We've seen Mary Kom, we've seen PV Sindhu. What is your about, if you could tell our viewers?
There's nothing much really. It's just a chessboard on the nail.
Very interesting, Divya. I know you're in a hurry. I'll let you go and pick up your World Cup medal, the maiden World Cup medal for India in the Chess World Cup. Divya Deshmukh has become the 88th Grandmaster of India and only the 4th woman.
Thank you so much for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest for you. Do stay tuned.